1,000 subcontractors, electricians, cleaners and maintenance personnel will also walk through the gates for the last time.
As BHP rationalised their operations and stuck to the core steelmaking business, they contracted out a lot of the work to other companies.
BHP has spent $188 million on redundancy payments, retraining and financial counselling for its direct employees. But those who've been subcontractors will get nothing. Management says subcontracting companies are responsible for the indirect BHP employees.
We're not talking about Mickey Mouse contractors here. We're talking about substantial companies who, by and large, frankly, are far more profitable and far more able to pay than are we.
The so-called subbies have been reluctant to go public for fear of losing future work. However, one has agreed to talk on the basis of anonymity.
They've classed us as contractors, which we are. We've fulfilled our contract, and that's it. We walk out the gate.
They're often doing similar duties, but they're two groups. They're two distinct groups, and it does present a situation of discrimination.
Subcontracting has been an effective corporate strategy for BHP, allowing the company to cut jobs without having to pay for all the entitlements and retraining associated with direct employees.
A lot of the contractors felt let down, not only by their own employers, but by BHP and also to a certain extent by the unions.
Many of the subcontracted workers took relatively small payouts as the big Australian downsized in the 1980s. They're now regretting the move. John Stewart, ABC News, Newcastle.
BHP workers will join the ranks of the unemployed. A lucky few will walk straight into another job, but the vast majority are facing the uphill battle to find work.
They've been clinging to their last days. Rhonda Commons dreading Thursday's shutdown.
Loved it. I've loved every minute of BHP. I think it's pretty sad. I think there's still a few people that still don't believe BHP is going to close.
As steelmaking ends, a new chapter in Rhonda's career begins. The dining room supervisor retraining in aged care.
We've had different tutors come in, and they come in at work, so we've just gone straight from work over to our classes, and we've got 8 guys from out on the plant, and they're wonderful fellows.
Rhonda is among 500 BHP employees to be retrained, and this is where most of those programs have been coordinated. For 2 years, BHP's Employment Centre has been operating the Pathways program, designed to give workers facing redundancy a chance at finding another job. The centre will continue to operate for 12 months after the steelworks close.
It's as varied as financial advice, lifestyle considerations, training, retraining options, career counselling, retirement planning.
So far, 1,200 workers have walked through the door seeking help. The centre actively promoting its workers to prospective employees.
Just recently we had a fellow drive down from Brisbane to interview quite a few of our people here for some team leaders positions for a plant up around the Brisbane area. That was very positive. We get a lot of inquiries from the Sydney sort of catchment area and Central Coast as well.
I'm satisfied that as we look forward to closure, that we can say that we've done 100% of what we could have done.
They've done more than they've ever done on previous occasions. I mean, there was none of the attempt in previous occasions to soften the impact, which I believe BHP have done on this occasion.
Peter Barrett concedes the mass job cut is another blow to the union's already declining influence.
They owe a lot of the membership, and their membership, that a lot of that membership will be lost forever simply because they won't go back into the workforce.
But Bloomcaster maintenance worker Greg Henderson has no intention of leaving the workforce. Scouring the Employment Centre's board for a job, Greg Henderson found work in Tomago as a boilermaker.
Yeah, it's worked out really well.
But Greg's story is the exception rather than the rule.
I would say majority of people who work here with me at BHP are looking for work.
There will be a good proportion of the people that lose their jobs who will find it very difficult to get a new one. And that is because that they may not have the skills required to be placed in one of these growing industries.
I'm going to have to find something else to do with my time, which is a bit of a worry. There's nothing that I've found yet that I want to do that sort of grabs me.
Workers without jobs will be forced to dip into their payouts to survive. Under law, they're prevented from accessing the dole until their redundancies are exhausted. But without a job, many are expected to move away, stunting the region's population growth.
I think that happened back in 1982, and we found within the Newcastle region that Newcastle actually had a -0 population growth simply because people moved out of the region.
Welfare groups are bracing themselves for increased demand as workers who stay in the area experience the trauma of losing a job and the despair associated with long-term unemployment.
A lot of the counsellors that have been speaking with BHP workers are worried about possible a movement towards gambling, alcoholism, all of these problems that result because someone loses their jobs.
But these workers aren't just losing their livelihood. Amidst the often treacherous conditions of steelmaking, workers have forged friendships almost as strong as the steel itself.
I'm not going to miss the dirt and the dust and the heat. It's the blokes I'm going to miss, yeah, the friendship.
For many, steelmaking is in the blood. The average length of service here is 20 years, and most workers have a father or grandfather who worked for BHP. As Newcastle loses the steelworks, so too these workers lose a piece of their family history.
Many of our employees have been here 40 years. Many of our employees are either third or fourth generation of the one family working here. That's pretty unique.
But the tough working conditions have also engendered a toughness of attitude.
We'll survive. We are men and women of steel, and we'll get there, mate. We are the backbone of this country.
And tomorrow night we'll take a look at the impact.
Like the Hunter, and that is a project and a process that continues. It's continued again this year.
Work is also on track to the extensions to the Allendale Aged Care Facility, which will include 216 more beds and a special dementia unit.
The $11 million extension is due for completion next June. For Peter Bullock, Prime Local News.
Years of hard work by the Redhead Landcare Group have gone to waste, vandals attacking one of their major projects. The voluntary group started working on the project in 1993. Vandals destroyed their good deeds in one night, smashing palings from wooden fencing and leaving beer bottles in their wake. And it's not the first time Landcare's work has been the subject of an attack, the group running out of answers to prevent the vandalism. A huge milestone for a unique Hunter business, providing job opportunities to the disabled. Hunter Special Industries' new building officially opened today by the Premier.
3 years ago, this building seemed a pipe dream. With nothing but a piece of dirt and a vision, a subcommittee set about landing financial backing, aiming to set up an engineering centre to provide meaningful employment for the disabled.
I love the new building. It's heaps bigger. We're going to get a lot of new equipment in it. Hopefully employ a few more disabled people.
Specialising in fabrication, welding and light engineering, the centre boasts an impressive client list, including the Roads and Transport Authority and Australia Post.
We have upgraded the quality of our work so that we're now competing in the main business community at competitive prices.
The state government was a major contributor, making a $250,000 loan available, Premier Bob Carr officially opening the purpose-built facility today. Sophie Hull, Prime Local News.
Looking ahead to tonight's national news, more controversy over Olympic ticketing, SOCOG blasted by the blind community.
In sport, selectors name an Australian side with plenty of surprises and without the man Mundine.
And coming up next, part one of our special series, The Making of BHP.
Earthquake. No other force of nature can produce destruction like it.
Shut off the gas! Shut off electricity!
When the ground starts to shake, there's no way of knowing when it will stop. Living with earthquake on our raging planet tonight.
It's easy to find out more about the referendum. Visit the website or call 1800 641 117 and you'll be sent the information on the Republic and the preamble questions.
Which way do you want to go?
Authorised by the Commonwealth Government, Canberra.
Fremantle is a port rich in maritime history. Just look at these exotic treasures gathered from the coastline of Western Australia. Speaking of exotic treasures from the deep, the seafood in Fremantle is sensational. Western Australia, holidays of an entirely different nature.
Holiday in Western Australia from only $689 flying Qantas with 3 nights accommodation in Perth. Contact your travel agent or Qantas Holidays.
At the sale at Kmart, the clothes are 25% off. That's men's, women's and children's clothing and sleepwear 25% off for Monday and Tuesday only. The sale, now on at the store. Kmart, just what you need.
This is Simon's first catalogue filled with carpets of distinction at sale prices, plus 12 months interest-free. No interest, no repayments for 12 months. Simon loves the catalogue and the 12 months interest-free. Check out Simon's first ever catalogue out now.
Used to be the harder the ball, the farther it went. Not anymore. This is the new Top Flight XL 2000. It's got titanium in the cover for explosive distance. On an average par 4, that's 10 yards longer from tee to green. Thing is, the XL 2000 has an amazing soft feel. Softness you can feel and hear. Close to the green? How about close to the pin? The all-new Top Flight XL 2000. Explosive distance, amazing soft feel. It's the best XL I've ever played.
What's new at Tomtyland? Check out our new summer prices. Come to Tomtyland and have the time of your life for just $15. Yep, all rides, all day, only $15. Tomtyland, just 30 minutes from Newcastle, open 7 days.
Welcome back. Tonight, in the first of our special series on BHP, we take a look back at the big Australian's origins and how BHP was instrumental in building Newcastle.
It was akin to building a steelworks in a pond. But deepwater access and proximity to the coalfields made Newcastle's swampland the obvious choice for BHP Steelworks. The company undertaking the venture in 1912, the plant a means of capitalising on its vast reserves of iron ore. Margaret Davies is one of the last remaining links with those early days. Her grandfather worked on construction, Margaret's father Jack, one of BHP's first employees.
His father worked before him with a company called Driffields. They prepared the site for BHP. Grandfather used to drive a horse and dray, you know, moving all the soil to fill in the site and everything. Well, that's different to today's mechanisation, isn't it?
Jack Jordan started work in BHP's telephone exchange at the tender age of 15.
And his means of transport across from Mosquito Island, where his family had a dairy farm, was by means of a little rowing boat. He used to row that across and tied up the BHP while he did his shift and then row home at midnight.
For 50 years and 8 months, Jack Jordan worked here in the administration building. In his day, everything was handwritten, the office manually processing 3 million payslips a year.
We lived our lives by the whistle. You almost didn't need a clock in Mayfield in those days. You had all the shift changes. You'd have a whistle at each shift change, and then the meal times.
Newcastle was the start of steelmaking for BHP, but also really the start of steelmaking for Australia. Out of this plant has come the steel which has gone into the bridges, into the roads, into the buildings, and importantly, of course, into the various war efforts.
If World War I was a baptism of fire, it was World War II that brought BHP of age. Infected by the patriotism sweeping the country, BHP's workers attempted to sign up in their hundreds. Most were refused.
Well, it was then what they called a protected industry because there was a shortage of people. The war effort was gearing up, and the apprentices went on to do work that normally they wouldn't have done for many, many years.
But according to Ron Russell, maintenance and modernisation of the plant were two casualties of the war, the effort proving all-consuming.
It became evident that the plant had to be modernised, and it was at that stage that I was taken from maintenance and made Chief Construction Engineer, so I was the one, if you like, that was brought out to perhaps head the construction era.
BHP thrived in the 50s and 60s. 6,000 men working on $260 million worth of construction projects, another 7,000 on the plant.
I think one of the greatest things that was there was the coherence of the workforce. The energy that that workforce had.
When I first went to the plate and bar mill, the foreman there, a fellow named Dog Thompson, who was a very good foreman, wanted to go and see the Queen crowned. And I was only very young. I was only the kid around the mill at the time, and I was put in charge of his shift, and obviously it was a 3-shift basis. I didn't know what to do, but by Jove, the fellows made sure that they showed me what to do and helped me.
The dangerous and difficult conditions fostering a fierce loyalty between workmates.
When I went to the 10 and 12-inch mills, the fellows in the bar mill told me that I wanted to be careful. There were a lot of communists over there, but in actual fact, I found them to be a very fine group of people.
Some say the decline of steelmaking can be traced back as far as 1954, when BHP established a hot strip mill in Port Kembla. But it wasn't until the early 80s that truly significant change began. Between 1981 and 1983, BHP slashed almost 50% of its workforce, from 11,000 employees to 7,000.
I don't think as severe as this. In 1982, although there were a lot of losses of people actually working for BHP, there were a lot of contractors or outside suppliers that got those jobs.
John Gillard saw the writing on the wall in 1982 and decided to join the mass exodus from the company.
I got my sums wrong. I thought that BHP was probably going to have to close Newcastle within the next 5 years, and I didn't want to be trying to find a job when I was 50.
On April 29, 1997, BHP confirmed what many had expected for years. The company announced the steelworks would close. An ageing plant and competitive world market meant the business was no longer viable.
Ultimately, this demonstrates that what sustains a business is its viability, that you just simply cannot go on bleeding and hope to survive.
Since that day, 500 workers have left the company. On Thursday, another 1,900 will be out of a job. Tomorrow night, we'll examine how they're preparing for life after BHP.
Time for sport now, Aaron. We know the steelworks were going to close for 2.5 years, but has the city done enough to prepare?
In 24 hours, BHP's Newcastle workforce will be a shadow of its former self. Just 1,000 workers will remain, another 2,000 officially out of work. The closure sending shockwaves throughout the economy.
BHP, like a lot of industries these days, outsources a lot of its services, things like cleaning, maintenance, even some engineering services, I believe, are outsourced. So all of those people are going to be affected.
The Hunter Valley Research Foundation puts total job losses at 4,500, pushing the regional unemployment rate to a near record high of 14%. That's more than double the state figure, the Hunter needing well over 10,000 new jobs to meet the state average.
And 10,000 jobs can't come in a large project. The only large project I've ever heard that can possibly get anywhere near that scale is an international airport.
The prospect of an international airport on Kooragang Island grows ever more dim, and the search for a range of smaller projects to fill the void continues. Steel River's transformation into a technology development park is taking shape, the CSIRO leading the way by nominating Steel River as the location for its energy research centre.
On this site, we're continuing our feasibility study for the prospect of establishing a container terminal. We'd hope to have that feasibility study finished by the end of this calendar year so that we can be in a position to announce a formal go-ahead with a bit of luck early next year.
For every person working
alongside the water in a port for bulk cargo such as coal, there is about 2 to 2.1 jobs generated elsewhere. However, in containers, it's something more to the like of 9 to 9.5 jobs generated for every job on the waterfront itself.
But there's division over where Newcastle's future lies. With natural beauty and a rich history, the city lends itself towards tourism. The question is, can tourism coexist with industry?
I think over time you're going to have a mix of tourism, advanced manufacturing, IT&T, biotechnology, all compensating for the loss of jobs in traditional manufacturing.
The city's future, I believe, lies in our ability to attract tourism at a level that is not grandiose but meaningful. And by that I mean we need to address the Sydney market.
The working port phenomena is one that's been very, very attractive as a tourism driver, as an attractor of tourists in many other places. Seattle, Long Beach in California, plenty of examples of where that's been a great draw card.
In the long term, it's a favourable result. It's a good result for us to let go of the past and get onto the new industries. And the new industries include a clean environment, tourism, aerospace, computer-related, service-related industries.
In a sense, the choice as to Newcastle's future direction has already been made. The statistics paint a telling picture. There's no denying manufacturing was once the economic powerhouse, accounting for 25% of the region's jobs.
Now that proportion has fallen to less than 15%. In fact, it's 13 or 14%. So our economy has changed, and where jobs have been lost in steelmaking and manufacturing, they've been gained in the tertiary sector, which is the service sector.
Whilst there's a great deal of attention on what we're doing here for very good reason, the reality is that this place has already changed. I think what we're doing is really drawing a line that there is a definite watershed here.
Put simply, retail trade, education, tourism and financial services have already replaced manufacturing as the boom industries.
The economy has become much more robust because it's become much more diverse.
But there's no denying in the short term, few sectors of the community will escape the effects of closure. BHP is inextricably woven into the region's economic fabric, and tomorrow night we'll examine just how the big Australian will be remembered.
Cassie Hamer there. Time for sport now.
Steelmaking. But tomorrow, the Steel City will bow out of a tradition which once secured the livelihood of thousands.
After 84 years, it's all over. Steelmaking at BHP will officially end tomorrow, the occasion marking the end of an era for a city shaped by its industrial past. It's a day many hoped would never come, but the reality is setting in. The blast furnace is cold, plumes of steam no longer imprint the Newcastle skyline, and more than 2,000 workers will be left jobless. Since the company's 1915 opening, more than 50,000 workers have passed through these gates. Tomorrow, the last generation of steel workers will pass into history when they march out for the final time. Economists say the domino effect of the closure will see up to 4,500 people, including contractors, out of work. And within 6 months, the big Australian is expected to get out of steelmaking altogether. As for the steelworks site itself, bulldozers will move in almost immediately. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
Good evening and welcome to the news from Ray Deneen.
And good evening from Melinda Smith.
Tonight, the end of an era as the gates close on BHP's Newcastle Steelworks for the last time.
Well, thanks for the memories, fellas. She's gone.
And Australian peacekeepers accused of being heavy-handed in East Timor. After 84 years, it's all over. This morning, 1,500 BHP steel workers walked out of the Newcastle steelmaking giant for the last time. The closure brings to conclusion a proud manufacturing tradition, which has helped build not only a city, but a nation.
The on-close workmates got together. At the rail dispatch yards, Aubrey Brooks made it final.
Thanks for the memories, fellas. She's gone.
Alongside the Bloomcaster, watches and photos marked the end. Final paychecks, laughingly called, don't come Mondays.
It's a bad day. It's a bad day. But, well, that's the end of it.
To me, it's a breakup of a pretty large family.
1,500 full-time workers finished, $180 million in redundancies paid. Many will find work, but the effects will be felt.
It's going to be tough for everybody, you know, I mean, it's 12% unemployment in Newcastle.
Families arrived to see what once thrived in Newcastle. Fathers taking their sons to see where steel was made for more than 80 years. It all began in 1915. Steel for 2 world wars and metal for a nation. 50,000 made a living from BHP, but from 12,000 steel workers in the early 80s, the last 1,500 gathered today. Many expected the end of steelmaking to be an emotional day, but when the workers walked out together, they showed just how tough they are. Workers didn't wait for managers' speeches, instead marching out in their own time. Tears gave way to brave faces.
We thought if we laugh, we won't cry, so we thought that might be a good way to go out.
I've been a bit teary this morning inside, but not walking out was a bit more uplifting, yeah.
The show of strength vital to people who won't be back.
Yeah, really important. I think it's a great idea. Just something to remember, an event to remember.
Well, they've got more than pride. I mean, their hearts are just enormous. People that are walking out here today have got some hope for the future.
With the main gates locked, the dismantling began almost immediately, and fireworks flew from closed coke ovens where steam once filled the sky. And with it all over, it was time for a last drink together. David McElwain, NBN News.
And